Over to you, Moz.
All right, guys. Yeah, I wanted to just have a bit of an open forum tonight. Answer some questions. But first of all, don't know, has anybody watching the England India Test match? Has anybody been following it? Interesting. Yeah, few thumbs up. It's been a really interesting watch. All I would say is it's funny how on day one, the pundits were saying it was the worst decision, or certainly some of the pundits were saying it's the worst decision to have bowled first. Can't believe it. And I think the lesson learned there is that we just got to see how the game progresses. And what we've got now is a test match where England obviously pretty much levelled India's score with their first innings, managed to bowl them out, and they're chasing 350 odd now on the last day. What an amazing test match. However it turns out tomorrow, and we hope it's going to be close. But it's gone 5 days, and 350 is a good score to chase, but it's a good wicket, and that's going to be really exciting. So I think the reason I wanted to bring that up tonight is because you should never really judge a wicket until both sides have batted on it, and that's what they say. And just always have that in the back of your mind, especially when you're bowling first, and the pitch sometimes seems very flat. And the batters are racking up a good score. Sometimes we bowl on pitches, and it's really hard to control the run rate. And I think it's just really important to just have in the back of your mind, if you're bowling well or if you're bowling poorly, especially as a team and as a group. The number of times I felt like, God, I'm actually bowling as best as I possibly can here. I'm hitting a good area, and the batters are still managing to score at 4 and over with ease. And it's really hard to build pressure, and that's where we have to think about some alternative fields. But um, always have in the back of your mind then that actually what you're doing is okay, and this is actually just a good pitch. And you can broadly understand that pretty quickly when you're playing on a surface like that. It can be a bit demoralizing because you don't feel like you have the control, and sometimes the captain or the batters feel like the game is slipping. But actually, I think the moral there is to just understand that it depends how your team bats, but the opportunity is there to go at 4 and over, to bat well, and it's really down to the wicket. So hopefully tomorrow will be a really interesting test match, and yeah, hopefully England will knock them off, none down overnight. So yeah, that was it. But what I wanted to discuss, or have the opportunity to discuss, is anything that you guys wanted to talk about this evening, specifically. So if you've got any questions at all on anything, then please do open up and come on and ask a question. Don't be shy. It could be on anything. If not, we'll just roll with it, and we'll discuss a few things about bowling. There must be a question out there.
Hi, Charlie.
Hello, how are we doing?
Yeah, much better now. Not the road rage. Sorry about
Yes.
that.
Yeah, that's all good.
Um, got a question. So on bowled on kind of a home wicket on Saturday,
Yeah.
bowled well, and then slightly uphill, and then on Sunday kind of bowled on the same end. Obviously a bit tired after bowling 8 on Saturday, but then it
Yeah.
was just kind of aggressively windy against me. And really struggled, and the first change bowler also struggled. So just wondering if you got any.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. This is something we've all bowlers have to contend with sometimes. That's the external factors, such as the wind or maybe a slope at a ground. And yeah, it's funny how you can feel all right one day, and then the next day doesn't quite feel as good. And it sounds like wind is the main contributing factor there. So I think how I describe it, I mean, I try and split them into two separate things. Talk about bowling uphill, and I'll talk about bowling into the wind, for example. But when we're bowling uphill, I personally love bowling uphill because I could attack the crease. I felt like I could control my tempo in a little bit better, but really it was all about the amount of effort I put in to get to the crease. at the right speed to then deliver the ball. And broadly speaking, you can't just cruise in up a hill to bowl fast. You have to put some effort in. So I quite like that. Um, Conversely, when you're coming downhill, you can't run in. You've got to just kind of like cruise and let yourself go, because if you run in, you hit the crease with too much momentum, you lose your rhythm, you lose your timing, and I think your action kind of goes to mess quite quickly. So when you're coming down the hill, I've always talk about the gears. You want to kind of be in like third gear. You want to be just cruising down that hill, and when we're going uphill, then you want to be in kind of like a fourth or fifth gear. So you want to just have a attack with that little bit more momentum. But what we don't want to do is get up to like sixth gear, because that's too much. We need to keep that control, that relaxed state. So that's what I think about in terms of bowling on hills. So notwithstanding your question was specifically about bowling uphill, but yeah, just have a think about that. You want to be in kind of like fifth gear, fourth or fifth gear going uphill. And then downhill, kind of like third, cruise in, not running. He'll take you, and that'll give you enough momentum to bowl. When we're bowling into the wind, I'd probably say we want to be kind of around that like fourth, fifth gear. So imagine you're running in up the hill again. Unfortunately, you had a pretty tricky spell on yesterday, being Sunday, with it being uphill and into the wind. I mean, that's a double demon, so to speak. That's quite tough, because you almost probably feel like you have to really, really fight to get to the crease. I think in those conditions there, and in that specific scenario, the worst thing to do is to fight it too much. If you end up fighting it again, you'll lose your rhythm. You'll get more tense. We'll lose all ability to have any tempo into the crease. I think it's about just trying to like accept it, and I've spoken about that before. Accept the conditions. If you accept them and you just run in and know that you're probably not going to bowl at your quickest, it might feel like you're bowling backwards. The reality is you aren't. But if you can get to the crease with a good even tempo in the most controlled way that you possibly can, then you're giving yourself the best chance to land that ball with good mechanics in your action that will hopefully generate some pace and put it on a good area. And yeah, it's not going to be a quicker spell, but you're going to be doing a great job for the team. You're going to be landing the ball in the right area. And if you're landing the ball in the right area, that's still challenging for the batter. And so I relate it back when we did a preseason tour several times out to Abu Dhabi, and it can be quite windy out there. So one end you'd be bowling with the wind, and bowlers would be bowling absolute rockets. And I'd usually open the bowling, and I'd always find myself going into the wind. And it's pre-season. You want to do well. You want to get wickets, and impress, and put your name forward for that first thing. I was thinking, oh gosh, I'm not gonna put my name in the hat to get selected for the first championship match if I'm, bowling into the wind in these conditions and I feel like I'm bowling backwards. But it was actually just that acceptance. And what I found is by doing those things, having that mindset, and then to me to land the ball in the right area. And actually, I don't think I got any wickets in my first spell, but managed to say dot the batter up, create pressure as a bowling unit. And that doesn't go unnoticed. And that's a really good job for the team. And you'll hopefully get your chance to switch ends. So to summarize, when you're running into the wind, you kind of want to obviously run in like you're running in uphill. So it's like fourth or fifth gear, but not into sixth where you kind of lose control, and just kind of accept it's there. When it's blustery, just do your best, get to the position in a nice, get to the crease really, rather in a nice controlled position, and that will enable you to still be effective on the day.
Excellent.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Ryan was next.
No worries.
Ryan?
I was going to ask a question about wind and bowling into the wind as well, to be fair. So obviously there's a bit of wind going around the country, I'd imagine, for us to all be...
It was windy yesterday.
Yeah. How about dealing with like a crosswind as well, Charlie?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, it depends on. It could be to your advantage if you are as a right-handed bowler and you swing the ball away from the right-handed batter, and it's obviously coming from right to left, and that's great. It can enable you to swing that ball a little bit more. What can be challenging is when you're trying to swing the ball away and you've got a wind to a right-handed batter, and the wind's coming from left to right across. It's almost countering what you're doing. And that's where I think you just again got to adapt. You've got to accept that actually it's probably not going to swing quite as much. This isn't the end to try and swing the ball away. You can try it, see if you do get anything. But I'd probably then go to wobble seam. But you've got to remember if it is quite a strong wind, pardon me, crosswind, then what you can do is just you might not naturally swing the ball away, but you might find the ball is almost like drifting back in, or it might feel like it's just tailing back in towards the batter. And you just adapt. You just go with it on that given day. Just make sure you figure out what line you need to set that ball off on to be effective in the moment on that day. And that's what bowling's about. Okay, we all have our preference. We know what we like to do. We know what our strengths are. We want to swing the ball away and in these conditions, but that doesn't always work out all the time. And so it's about working out what you need to do on that given day to still be effective for the team and to take wickets. And so yeah, I mean, I just try and do what you'd usually do, which might be to swing it one way or whatever. But if you're a seam bowler primarily, then I think it's just understanding if the ball is moving with the wind one way and just adjusting your line ever so slightly. We don't need to make big adjustments. It might be like half a stump or a stump's worth of change from one end. That makes sense. How have you found it with the crosswind? Any particular challenges?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm like a left arm in swing bowler, so sometimes the captain seems to think for some reason to bowl me so that the wind is coming back into a right-handed batsman and with a slope which might fade that way as well. Whereas I'd rather bowl the other end where it will take it away after pitching, and then you can potentially beat the batsman on both sides. So yeah, it's just about trying to really when it is coming back in, I have to really push it across the batsman in the hope that it's going to angle back. And then you occasionally get it wrong where you just push it a bit too far and you're asking it to do a bit too much. But yeah, it's just playing with those angles and like trying to get your body right to get the line, because I have a bit of a habit of being a bit slingy and trying to get it and push it across. So trying to make sure I still almost use the crease a little bit more and run in on a bit more of an angle, I guess.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'd say always when the ball is swinging, whether it's got a bit of assistance from the wind or not, we want to. One of the things I always say to bowlers that swing the ball is we still want to bowl it as fast as we can down that specific line. We don't want to get too pushy or floaty with it. I think this is the thing with swing. We can sometimes get a bit floaty. We kind of put it up there to try and get it on that right position. What we want to do is really still try and bowl it into the pitch. If you think about it, the quicker we try and bowl it into the pitch, hopefully our arm will come over obviously quicker, but we'll have more energy on the ball. And the more energy we have on the ball and we're behind it, the more rotations it will get. So I can't remember what the stats are. I mean, we kind of looked at like James Anderson and compared the amount of revolutions he got on the ball when he released it from the flick of his wrist compared to like an off spinner, and it was like the same, if not more, or something from revs on the ball. So we're trying to like get those revolutions on the ball, and that helps it stand up. So the more revs we get on the ball, you can imagine it just helps keep the seam bolt upright, and that will help it swing. So we still want to try and bowl it into the pitch hard on that full length. I personally, when I swung the ball, when I got a bit floaty like that, kind of end up just putting it up there on a spot. Actually, it's far more effective when you bowl into the surface like that, get that swing, because it keeps the batter trapped on the crease that little bit more. So just slight side note on it for anyone who's a swing bowler on the call. Just really think about hitting that fuller length at pace when you're swinging it.
Cheers, Charlie.
No worries. Good stuff. Is a side question for anyone on the call, but how did everyone find it with the weather this weekend? It was pretty hot in the UK on Saturday. I think it was about 30 degrees still. Any cramp? Anybody feel a bit more fatigued on Sunday? Interested to hear how everyone's got on. I'm sure everyone was bowling in the heat. Horrendous, Zoeb says. I had my game called off for rain. Oh no, okay. Didn't know it was raining on Saturday.
There was a question from Monty just above that as well.
Okay. As a player who's new, as a player who is new to captain, what are things I must consider as a captain? I was also focused on my own bowling. Thank you, Monty. Yeah. So historically, we haven't had bowlers be captains because primarily it's gone to kind of like wicket keepers or batters because they're not in the moment with the ball. They can kind of sit back and survey what's going on and make decisions. But I think that's changed a lot now. There's been a lot more captains that are bowlers these days. So I think the best advice I could give you from a captaincy point of view is you've always got to think a few steps ahead of the game and where it's going. That does make it difficult when you're bowling because you obviously want to focus on what you're doing, but you need to be thinking about your bowling changes. And generally, how are you bowling as a group, as a bowling unit or whatever you call yourselves on the pitch? How effective are you bowling yourself? So you might want to, if you're not bowling quite as well, drop the ego a little bit and just swap, make a bowling change and take yourself off and have a go later. Or it might be that you need to make that decision at the other end. So think about how you're bowling. Are you creating pressure? Is the field right? Obviously thinking about the conditions as well, how you're best going to utilize your seamers. There is a lot to think about. The one bit of advice I would give for any captain is, generally speaking, you start the innings off and you might bowl, if opening bowler from one end will bowl 6 and you might bowl another 6 at the other end from your other opening bowler. And then you end up making a double bowling change. And that's quite hard to keep the pressure on. You've got 2 new bowlers coming on. You don't know how they're going to bowl, and the batters might be set, and they might really try to look to put pressure on the two bowlers and therefore make an impact in the game. What my advice would be is always to try and bowl one bowler at all times, longer than the other. So in this instance, you might bowl from one end. They might have a 6 or 7 over opening spell, and at the other end they might bowl kind of like 4 or a 5, and then you bring the other one on. So you're not kind of having a double bowling change at the same time. You're slightly overlapping each other, and that should mean that one bowler is always kind of into their spell and bowling hopefully well, and that helps you keep the pressure on as a batting. On the batters, sorry, as a bowling unit. So that would be a key bit that we'd always try and avoid at Worcester, was like a double bowling change. And it's something I don't think that's usually think about. It kind of could be quite rigid in our change bowling changes as captains historically in cricket. So have a think about that. And yeah, just I'd say the most important thing is get your instinct. Back your instinct, back your gut. Just go. If you feel like the bowling change is required, or you feel like a certain field is needed, then go for it. And critically, always talk to your bowlers. Okay, it's best if they can set the field. Give them the opportunity to set their field and come up with a plan, and then facilitate around that. Sometimes I know in village cricket or league cricket, the captain ends up kind of just dictating the field. Ideally, I'd encourage your team your bowlers to set their own fields and then help them where they need to. That's putting the ownership and the responsibility on them to know what they're doing. But that also helps them if they do that to execute, because they've chosen that plan and they've said that I'm going to bowl in this specific way rather than just getting told to do something. Hopefully that's answered a few questions there, Monty, on captaincy.
Thank you for that. That was really useful. Cheers.
No worries. Good stuff. Private said, I've only cramped once this year, thankfully. Excellent. That's good to hear. Sounds like nobody really struggled on the weekend then with the heat, so that's good. Has anyone got any other questions, guys, on bowling? Can be anything. Please don't be shy. Do come on and ask. Go for it. I'm sure there's another question out there.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a different one. So how do you get lucky as a bowler? Because I'm always having a load of drop catches. People literally are letting balls go through their legs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's the biggest frustration, isn't it? I think I'll try and separate the outcome and how you're doing with how you're bowling as a process, how you actually getting on, and how you're the areas that you're hitting. I think you need to separate the two. What I would say is when we try and chase success, so we try and chase wickets on the field, we never end up bowling well. We end up trying to force the game, and that's when generally we don't bowl as accurately. Tension builds, and we lose all our flow. So we want to kind of, it can be really frustrating when when catches are going down and balls are going through the legs. It's frankly, it's all out of our control. The emphasis there should be on probably in debriefs after the game, talking to your teammates in a respectful and way about doing some more ground fielding or doing some specific catching to make sure that they aren't letting the ball go through their legs and they're taking those catches. I think that's where the discussion would go. But I think we know when we're bowling well and when we're not. We've got to be quite honest with ourselves and reflective. And if we're running in and we're hitting a good area and we're creating chances and opportunities, then that's all we can do for the most part. There obviously we might have LBW calls not given. We might have batters nick off and it not be given out by the umpire. I say that's all like the outcome. All we can do each and every ball is focus on how we're bowling. Are we executing our process well? And I promise you, if you do that over and over again, your rewards will come. And we go through these really frustrating periods where we don't get wickets or we don't feel like we've got any luck. And then it will change. You will have your FIFA will come. But what I can absolutely guarantee you is if you try and chase it and force the luck, you'll end up when your luck is effectively changed, you'll be trying to force the game, and you'll end up missing and getting hit, and so it can be frustrating, but just stick with it. It will change, and I'm sure everyone on this call has been there in times where they've not quite got the wickets they want, as I usually do, I ramble on a bit, so I'll just say one more thing about this. Is Stuart Broad years ago? People say, well, he hasn't got any wickets. His average is this X, Y, and Z. He's had a really poor year or year and a half, and it was like, well, actually, if you looked at the number of drop catches he had in that period of time, if they'd half of them had been his average would have been, didn't look at the bigger picture, and then a few years later, it was just forgotten about. He stuck with what he was doing. He didn't really change what he was doing too much. Maybe slightly fuller, but broadly speaking, he was bowling the same. His process was good, and rest speaks for itself. Finished up with second leading wicket taker all time for England. So we all go through these patches, and even the best do. So just stick with it. Make sure you stick with your bowling process and execute as well as you can.
Sound. Cheers.
No worries. Good stuff. Good question. Any more questions, guys?
Just a small follow-up on that, Charlie, if that's all right.
Go for it.
Do you have any kind of tips and tricks to just kind of getting through that mental reset when you get to the top of your mark? If you're bowling poorly or something's gone against you, what can you do to help yourself just carry on and bowl the next ball rather than kind of change or dwell?
Yeah, so I think this is it really comes into having a bowling routine, like a mental routine, and it does take a bit of time to develop and for it to become normalized within your bowling. When I started, it was quite had to think about my routine quite a lot, and by the end of your career, once you've done it or bowled executed it for a number of years, it's kind of just become second nature. But almost like top of my mark, I know where I want to bowl. I run in and I try and execute that delivery. So for me, I knew what I needed to do to deliver that ball. It would be to look at a very specific spot on the pitch, keep my focus on it all the way from the top of my run up. So I'd almost have quite a broad focus, and then as I was getting closer and closer to the crease, it would like narrow. And I'd like almost look at like a 50-pence piece on the pitch, execute it, and then I've delivered the ball. I've either bowled it well or I haven't. So I'd have a quick debrief of that in my mind. I might have bowled a really good ball, top of off stump, and the batter's played a really good shot, and I think, okay, fair enough. Or I might have missed where I was trying to bowl, and I think, okay, was I focusing on where I needed to bowl, or what happened? Did I lose my footing? Whatever it is, so you have a quick review, and that review process would take place. I've bowled the ball, and whatever's happened is either gone through to the keeper or it's been hit before. I'd review it, but then at the point I passed the umpire on my way back to the top of my mark, that's where I'd like refresh my head. And to do that, I would usually engage in conversation with the captain or one of the fielders at mid on, mid off to almost just switch off. I'd look up sometimes at the crowd, but it doesn't have to be a crowd. It can be just look around the ground or whatever, what's going on. And just notice other things, so like the broader perspective. I was found getting engaged in a conversation with my mate and talk about something completely random would be helpful, because it was just the way, they might ask me like a random question, or so talk about something funny that had happened, and that would just help me completely switch off. So I've done the review process. That's okay, that ball's happened, like, okay. I know within that review process, obviously I know what I need to do, so maybe I haven't concentrated quite as well on hitting that 50 pence piece on the pitch, or my footing went, or whatever's happened, judging it past the umpire. Okay, that's it. I'm now talking to my mate, or think about something else. Get to the top of my mark, deep breath. Okay, back onto where I need to focus to execute that ball. Because if we constantly review and we don't have that switch off, it can be mentally very draining, and just your brain just gets completely filled and cluttered. So we have to have that ability to switch off, and you can see it. Batters do it as well. They try and play each ball individually as an event. That's why batters kind of like touch their pads and twiddle their gloves and the bat round and then tap it a couple of times. It's just a routine really, where they're just kind of not thinking about what's happened. They're just getting in the zone for that period of time, and that's what we're trying to replicate. And they might think about the shot they played for a few minutes, and then you see batters walk off to like square leg, and they're looking around the ground, and they might just be like just forgotten about that ball, and then they come back in, reset in the moment. I think that's the same type of thing we're trying to replicate with the ball, playing each ball on its merit, not letting it affect what we've what's happened previously, affect what we're going to do the next ball too much, apart from just in the right way focusing on what we need to do to execute. So hopefully that answers it and gives you a couple of things. It's just really about setting a pre-bowling routine up. And I'll finish by saying, oh no, it's gone from my head. Another point, probably a good thing. Talking on again, but yeah, hopefully that's useful.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks very much.
Good work, excellent, great, cool. Anyone else? Any other questions?
Yes, I've got one.
Okay, Josh.
Yeah. So, when did you use a slower ball? So, when you want to get a wicket, or when you are just trying to get a dot ball, or to make the batsman frustrated, or when is the best time to bowl slower one?
So, broadly speaking, slow ball will be used at the death, I'd say, in cricket, whether that's 50 over game or shortened period of time. Usually it's when a batter is trying to line you up to hit you in a certain area, and we're trying to deceive them. So we're taking the pace off the ball, make it come down slower so that it goes up in the air. So that's generally when we'd use them. You can use slow balls. I did use slow balls up front in T20 games when the batters are trying to be quite aggressive in the power play, just to try and keep them guessing. You keep on the same ball over and over and over and over again in the power play, you are going to get lined up. So it just had an element of surprise, or to try and keep them honest, I'd change it. It could at times be a wicket taking delivery. So there was that side of things. But I think what I'd try and do when I'm bowling against a batter and they've got hold of me is have a look at their swing and whether it looks like they're reacting. Sometimes you can just tell whether a batter's just kind of going for it, and they're just swinging. They're not really reacting to the ball. They're just gonna, whatever's coming down at them, they're gonna swing with the same intensity each time and hope that they get most of it, if not all of it, and it goes out of the park. And it's those type of batters which have that swing, that aren't really looking to react if it is slower and play a different shot. that you can really then use the slow ball effectively. And obviously the point of it is to deceive them. So the key things with your slow ball: keep your arm speed up, make sure that it's there's some element of deception to it. There's several types of slow ball that we can bowl, and I can go over that on another session perhaps. But we've done them. I'm sure there's a few seminars you can look back on slow ball and stuff, but I certainly haven't done it for a while, so I'm going to go over them to do a refresher. But yeah, have a think about what slow ball works well for you. You've got to make sure you have good control of it. Executing a slow ball, we want to make sure we're hitting the right length. We don't want to be too full. Sometimes when we're so full, it's still in the batter's swinging arc, and it doesn't really do its purpose. It's that full that they can swing through the line and hit it out of the park. So yeah, and if it's too short, because it's slow, they actually find they have time to react. So we want to make sure we're able to control it onto a good length where it will bounce onto the kind of like top of the stump height still. And then the final thing I'll say is think about bowling it wider. The wider we bowl it, hopefully the ball will be away from the middle of the batter's bat, so it's wide outside the off stump. And if they end up towing it up in the air, then we've got more of a chance of it not going over the boundary, being muscled over the boundary, and it therefore being going straight up and getting, pardon me, the batter getting caught. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that answers my question. And so good length or outside of slower ball is a good one, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So yeah, I'd have certainly like top of the stump, so top of middle and off for a straighter one, and then wider. You could go slightly fuller, but marginally. But we really want to be just making sure we bowl it as close to the wide line as we can. If you've got wide lines in your cricket, so obviously if you haven't, just make sure it's not too wide so you get wided, but probably got a bit of leeway there. And further up the leagues you go, then wide line should be in place. We just want to be bowling it exactly down that wide line. It does take practice, and so make sure you get enough repetitions in. You know that you can execute it in practice, so that when it comes to the day, you execute it well.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Good stuff. Excellent. Cool. Any other questions, guys? Any topics at all? Might have a question about professional cricket. What it's like. Anything any questions or anything you're inquisitive of, please. This is definitely the forum to ask. Juicy and I can share our experiences, which we're very happy to do. But it also might be a question specifically related to something you're working on. Yeah, go for it if you have. No more?
Anything at all, guys? No?
Jesus, any topics
Hi,
you
I've
can...
got one.
Oh,
go for it, yes.
So when you're training and stuff, how would you prioritize your time to practice? Maybe like you stop ball and then a different type of ball or something like that?
Great question, Harry. I think it really depends on what you're trying to get out of the session. So sometimes I would, the coaches at Worcester would encourage us to just bowl a specific type of ball for every ball you're going to bowl in training. So that's what really comes down to, like what you're trying to get out of your session. So for example, if we'd played loads of red ball cricket, longer format cricket, we would have bowled our stock ball hundreds of times, and we'd bowled it loads of times over the winter. And it's our stock ball, and we've been bowling good lengths, and it would be like it'd just be second nature. We'd be in a really nice groove with it, and happy we can execute that. And that's great because you can take that straight into your white ball stuff. Happy days. But what we hadn't done for a while is bowl a load of Yorkers. And so we try and bowl a Yorker, we'd end up bowling half volleys because we hadn't had that same repetition in. So, leading up to T20 fixtures, we would just bowl. I might have like 4 or 5 overs to get through in training, and every single ball I'd bowl would be a Yorker because I know that I've got a bank of work behind me, and I'm really confident and happy that I'm executing my stock ball. Although hopefully most professional bowlers should be able to deliver their stock ball at any point because that's the stock ball. But critically, it might be that actually, right, I really feel like my Yorker's not anywhere where it needs to be going into the T20 fixture. So every single ball I'm going to bowl in this session is going to be a Yorker. And that's a great way just to ramp it up. And I think you just got to judge where you are at that moment in time with your skill set. It might be that you feel that you want to practice your Yorker equally the same amount to your slow ball. Okay, so you might do 2 overs of Yorkers and you might do 2 overs of a certain type of slow ball. Or some sessions you might want to just do the whole array. So you might do 6 kind of stop balls, 6 Yorkers, 6 back of the hand slow balls, 6 off cutters, and just know that you've kind of gone through your whole suite of deliveries. And yeah, that's fine. I think it's really down to you to decide what you need on depending on how you're performing at that given moment. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. All I would say is when you haven't bowled something for a while, do think about trying to get some reps in of that ball. So yeah, otherwise it's much harder to you've almost got a longer amount of time between bowling for example your Yorker compared to your stock ball, and it's always harder to get back to it. I think if we can try and keep on top of things often, and apparently Darren Goff always used to finish his sessions off by bowling 6 Yorkers every time. It was just a way for him to top up that he can execute that skill at all points. So I tried to do that once, but yeah, it didn't last long. Ended up doing other bits. Yeah, mentally weak.
That took you a week.
Yeah. Hope that answers. Yeah, yeah, and mentally weak. Yeah, hopefully that answers it, Harry. Is that helpful, mate?
Say you've had an injury and you've been out for a while. When you're coming back from a longer injury, what would you prioritize in training a lot of the time?
Stock ball. Get your stock ball back to a good place. Yeah, that's your bread and butter. It's all right. It's going back after a long period off, and trying to bowl everything under the sun. But we've got to start somewhere. Start with the basics, execute that well, and then move on from that. And I think just if you're coming back from a long layoff like that, just know that it's going to take some time to upskill and get your Yorker back to where it needs to be or you want it to be. One thing at a time, like very progressive. Let's get the stock ball in a good place. Right now, the Yorker. Right now, my off cutter. Eventually, expectation management. A few months' time, I'm going to be in where I want to be. But it's not just going to happen like that, and it's certainly not going to happen like that if you come back and try and do everything at once and do it all poorly, as opposed to doing one thing really well and then moving on, building that confidence up.
Okay, all right, thank you.
No worries. Good stuff. Any more questions, guys, on anything? Jeez, you've got an anecdote to finish with from your time in the professional game?
No, it was just interesting watching the test match. You spoke about keeping in and looking at when both sides have bowled, but also as a bowler, hanging in there. We saw with Tungy, who's just got 7 wickets in a test match, 4 for a first dig, took out the tail, 3 for second dig, took out the tail. He's come out with 7 for probably 200 or less. That's hell of a return when 60 overs deep in both innings, he's none for. So it's keeping in there. Second innings in particular, he obviously kept the run rate down as well, which they all did. They had a bit of a stinker first day, really, but they held in there. India could have got 600, 650, really. So to restrict him first dig and then restrict him second dig, keep in there as a bowler. It doesn't take long. Me and Moz had so much experience at Worcester of thinking we were going okay, and then 2 wickets go quickly and things can change within half an hour. The many again we thought chasing 250 we were going to get 190 for 3 and then not get it. So always just hang in there. Hang in there. Keep doing what you're doing, and you never know when it can change.
Definitely, you can that add 2 wickets on is a great mentality. So if you're out in the field and you haven't got wickets for a while, just we always say wickets come in clusters. Always add 2 wickets on, but equally, when you're batting, always think about what the score looks like if 2 wickets are added on quickly. I think it certainly added perspective. And you think, oh, we're 100 for two here. We're setting up nicely, and then it's like, okay, if I added two wickets on here, and they say we're 100 for four. It's not quite a strong a position, is it? So, I think the one thing that can happen in cricket, because it's done over a period of time, is complacency can set in, and that kind of add 2 wickets onto the score certainly helps sides to, as a bowling unit, if you haven't quite got the wickets you want, keeps you switched on and this is going to be, if we get these 2 wickets quickly, this is going to really affect the course of the game. But from a batting perspective, it really stops complacency, because the scores look very different when you only add 2 wickets on, and it just means that you are constantly trying to get to a stronger position. If you say it's 200 for four, well, that's much better, isn't it? So what do you need to do? You need to establish a partnership, keep it going, not get ahead of the game, not let yourself get complacent. So great point, Juicy. Yeah. Stick it in with it.
Good stuff. Right, we'll close it there then. We'll be back next week. Myself and Gav will be live Q&A tomorrow night at 8 p.m. And then Wednesday we will be, I think it's 8 a.m. for live Q&A. And then Wednesday evening at 7 for Performance Lab. And we're going to do the one we were meant to do last week, and we had lots of issues with the internet and recording, so we're going to redo that one. Okay, so guys, as always, we're on form if you need us. Go well, ruthlessly consistent with everything you do, and have a great week. Speak to you later.
Cheers all.